After finishing a brutal 72-hour shift at the station, all I could think about was my bed and Ava. Not in the way I used to, not with that magnetic hunger that pulled me home like gravity. No, this was something different. Like reaching for something you're afraid might not be there anymore. I missed her, but not just in the obvious ways. I missed how things used to feel simple, warm, unshaken. Now there was this quiet distance between us, growing slowly like rust under paint. So I tried to bridge the gap the best way I knew how, with small gestures. I took a detour on the way home to pick up her favorite spiced rooibos tea from the little shop downtown, the one she used to drag me into every Saturday after brunch. I remembered how her face lit up when they added the cinnamon stick, how she used to tease the barista until he blushed. I thought maybe if I could give her even one moment of comfort, one moment where she felt seen, it might be enough to remind us of who we used to be. By the time I pulled into the neighborhood, the sky was already shifting toward dusk, that soft blue haze settling in. Everything looked normal. Lawn sprinklers ticking away. A couple of neighborhood kids chasing each other on scooters. The kind of quiet evening that didn't scream something's wrong. But then I saw it. A car I didn't recognize was parked in Ava's usual spot in the driveway. A dark blue sedan, late model, with Colorado plates. It wasn't a beater either, it looked rented, spotless. I sat there for a moment, engine still running, one hand on the steering wheel, trying to convince myself it wasn't weird. Maybe it was a friend visiting. Maybe a neighbor had asked to borrow the spot. But I couldn't remember the last time anyone we knew came in from out of state. And Ava never mentioned a visitor. I cut the engine and stepped out, the paper bag with her tea crinkling in my hand. As I walked up to the front door, my stomach tightened. I told myself I was being paranoid, lack of sleep, too much caffeine, too many horror stories from the guys at the station. But when I stepped inside, that's when everything clicked into place. The house was clean. And not just tidy, unnaturally clean. The kind of clean that says someone was trying to make a good impression. The couch pillows were fluffed and arranged exactly the way I remembered from the catalog photo, not the usual sloppy pile Ava left them in. The scent of lemon cleaner hung faintly in the air, mixed with something else, something musky and sharp. Cologne. A kind I didn't wear. I moved slowly through the house, my boots making too much noise on the hardwood. The kitchen counters were wiped down. No mug in the sink. No trail of breadcrumbs from her usual late-night snacking. Even the throw blanket was folded neatly at the end of the couch. Something was off. I headed upstairs, more out of habit than purpose, and stepped into the bedroom. The bed was made. Not half-heartedly like Ava usually did, but tucked, folded, smoothed like hotel staff had done it. Our bed never looked like that. Ava hated hospital corners. She said they made her feel like she couldn't breathe. There was a faint indent on one side of the bed, hers. The other side looked barely touched. I moved to the bathroom, trying not to think, just observe. Her makeup bag was zipped, which was weird, she never zipped it. Too impatient, always digging around for something. The hand towels were freshly laundered, perfectly aligned. I looked to the sink, 2 toothbrushes. One was mine, slightly frayed. The other was brand new, still with the sharp edges from the package. A sleek, gray-handled razor rested in the shower caddy next to hers. Not mine. Never was. I didn't hear her come in. The front door opened and closed gently. I froze, heart pounding. Her voice followed, cheerful but almost too loud, like she was performing. "Jason," she called out. "Didn't expect you home so early." I walked out of the bathroom slowly, like I'd wandered into someone else's life. Ava stood in the entryway to the kitchen, arms full of grocery bags, trying to steady them on her hip. Her hair was up in a loose bun, a little frizz curling out at the edges. She wore a soft blue sweater and leggings, casual but well put together. Too put together. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw me, not enough to scream guilt, but just enough to notice. Then she smiled. "Too fast." "Wow. You scared me," she said, setting the bags down on the counter. "I didn't think you'd be back until tomorrow." "Got out early," I replied, holding up the tea like it was some kind of peace offering. "Thought I'd surprise you." She walked over, took the bag from me gently. "That's sweet," she said, voice soft but distant. "You remembered." "Of course I did." She opened the lid and took a sip. Smiled again, but only with her mouth. Her eyes never really met mine. I leaned casually against the edge of the island, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Whose car is that outside?" She blinked. Just once. Then shrugged. "Oh, that? It's a rental. My coworker, Kevin, he's in town for a conference and couldn't find parking at the hotel. I told him he could leave it here for a day or two. He Ubered back." "From Colorado?" I asked. She was already unpacking the groceries. "Yeah. He's based out of Denver. We do a lot of remote work together." She changed the subject before I could press again. Something about the price of salmon. I nodded along but stopped listening. Her answers weren't technically lies. But they were too smooth, too convenient. And they stacked together with every odd detail I'd noticed, the razor, the bed, the scent in the air. The way she avoided eye contact when she lied. I'd been gone 3 days. I was supposed to come home to my wife. Instead, I felt like a stranger in my own house. I didn't say anything more. Just watched her unload groceries. Listened to the quiet buzz of the refrigerator. Felt the weight of something unseen hanging over both of us. She filled the silence with small talk, asking about work, about the station, about a mutual friend's wedding next month. Her voice was light, effortless. But something behind it felt hollow. Like a well-rehearsed monologue. That night, I laid awake long after she fell asleep. She turned away from me in bed. She always used to fall asleep curled against my chest. The days that followed were strange, not chaotic or explosive, but strange in that quiet, uncomfortable way, like a draft coming in from a window you can't find. I kept trying to shake the feeling, to tell myself it was just exhaustion or a shift in routine, but deep down, something was gnawing at me. It wasn't what I saw, it was what I didn't see. And what I didn't feel. Ava and I had been distant for months, sure. I chalked it up to stress, long hours, different sleep cycles. Marriage goes through phases, right? Peaks and valleys. I figured we were just in one of those valleys. But now, looking back with sharper eyes, I realized we hadn't been drifting, we were unraveling. Slowly, methodically, and maybe deliberately. It was in the little things. She used to leave her phone on the kitchen counter while she cooked or folded laundry. It would buzz with group texts from her sister or pings from Pinterest, and she wouldn't care if I glanced at the screen. Yeah? The phone was always face down. Always within reach. She started locking it, which she hadn't done in years. I only noticed because the screen went dark while we were watching TV, and when she picked it up, I saw her thumb hover over the lock before she turned slightly away. She didn't even try to hide the shift. That made it worse. One night, I tested it. She got up to take a shower and left her phone on the arm of the couch. I waited for the water to start running before reaching for it. It didn't open with my fingerprint. That was new. I stared at it for a long time, then set it back down exactly how she left it, like it might explode. She used to send me funny memes and videos throughout the day, stuff about cats in firefighter costumes or those viral TikToks she'd try to imitate after a glass of wine. But now the texts were practical. Dry. Don't forget eggs. The garage lights still out. Like we were roommates, not partners. Even her schedule changed. She started working late more often. First once a week, then twice, then suddenly it was the whole team staying late tonight with almost mechanical frequency. When I offered to bring her dinner, she'd say no, don't worry about it. We're ordering in. It's a team thing. I stopped asking after the third time she declined. One Friday, I got off earlier than expected and thought I'd surprise her by swinging by the office. I figured I'd drop off dinner, say hi to her team, maybe even walk her to the car like we used to when we first started dating. I parked around the block and walked in with a bag of takeout still warm. But when I reached her floor, the lights were dim. Empty. I asked the front desk if Ava's department was still working. The receptionist blinked and said, "Oh no, the whole floor's been remote today. Some kind of system update." That night, when Ava came home, she was all smiles. Said the team worked straight through dinner and finished a big quarterly report. I nodded and handed her the leftovers I'd stashed in the fridge. She kissed my cheek and said I was thoughtful. Then she disappeared upstairs. I stood there, holding the empty takeout bag like it owed me an explanation. Even the way she touched me changed. Or rather, didn't. She used to run her fingers across my shoulder blades when she passed by me at the sink, just a simple brush that said, "I see you." Now her touches were choreographed, quick kisses on the cheek, polite hugs when I came home, like a friend trying not to overstep. One night, I reached for her hand while we watched a movie. She let me hold it, but her fingers stayed limp. I let go first. She'd always had her quirks, things that made her Ava. She talked during movies, hummed when she cleaned, hated wearing socks in the house. Now, there was a kind of stillness in her. An awareness. Like she was performing herself. It wasn't until I opened our shared calendar that I felt a deeper chill. Ava and I used to keep everything in there: birthdays, appointments, grocery reminders. I clicked in to schedule a vet visit for our neighbor's dog I was watching, and I noticed her calendar looked sparse. Emptier than usual. But not completely blank. Just vague. Entries like training retreat, wellness seminar, client strategy brunch. They weren't recurring, and they didn't have locations. No details. Just placeholders, almost like decoys. I clicked into one out of curiosity, and it had no guests invited. No notes. No time range, just busy. I tried to brush it off. Told myself maybe she was blocking time for herself. Setting boundaries. We all need that, right? But it didn't add up. Ava was detail-oriented, obsessive about syncing calendars. If she was doing something professional, it would have had a bullet point list and 3 color-coded tags. This looked more like someone covering their tracks. So I asked her about it. Hey, I said one night, keeping my voice casual. You've got a lot of stuff on the calendar this week, training, seminars, that kind of thing. All good. She didn't miss a beat. Yeah, it's just a bunch of internal things. HR's trying out new engagement stuff and we're kind of the guinea pigs. Honestly, it's boring. Don't even worry about it. Anything I should add to my calendar for your days off? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let's just play it by ear. Work's been unpredictable lately. That smile used to make me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Now it made me feel like a stranger. Later that night, I noticed she'd turned off location sharing on our family app. No notification. No hey, just FYI. She used to leave it on out of habit when I was on night shifts. It helped her know if I was safe. I opened the app and saw only my pin floating on the map. Hers was gone. I asked her about it the next day. She looked surprised. Oh? Huh. That must have happened when I updated the OS. You know how buggy those updates are. I'll fix it later. She didn't. It's funny how silence becomes the loudest thing in a house. The lack of laughter. The lack of footsteps above while I cooked. The lack of hey babe, look at this. One morning I asked if she wanted to plan a weekend getaway. Something simple. Just the two of us. No obligations. She hesitated. I actually have a company retreat that weekend, she said. I didn't tell you? It's kind of mandatory. They're really pushing wellness this quarter. Where's it at? Somewhere upstate. I'll send you the details when I get them. She never did. I looked at the couch that night, the same one I'd fluffed pillows on 3 weeks ago when I came home early, and wondered who else had sat there since then. Who else had made the bed with crisp corners? Who else had left a brand new toothbrush in our bathroom? I hadn't said anything yet. I hadn't accused her. I didn't even know what I would say if I did. Part of me still wanted to be wrong. Still wanted to believe in coincidences and clumsy explanations. But another part, the quieter, colder part, knew what was happening. Not in flashes. Not in explosions. But in the slow, deliberate slide of someone pulling away. People think cheating is about S**x or attention. But I think the real betrayal starts with distance. With the quiet, careful decisions. The erasures. The edits. The things not said. And I was starting to realize Ava had been rewriting our story for a while now. I didn't want to go. When Ava told me about the formal event her firm was hosting downtown, a corporate gala for clients, partners, and senior leadership, I instinctively hesitated. Not because I didn't want to support her, but because something about the invitation felt off. She mentioned it like an afterthought during dinner, casually sliding it in between a comment about frozen pizza crusts and the cost of dry cleaning. Oh, by the way, there's a company thing this Friday. Formal. You can come if you want, it's not a big deal. I looked up from my plate. You want me there? She paused. Sure. I mean, they said spouses were welcome. Not I'd love for you to be there. Not it'd mean a lot. Just spouses are welcome. Like a line from an office memo. Still, I said yes. I didn't know what I expected, maybe some sense of reconnection, a glimpse of who we used to be when we got dressed up and went out, when we still laughed over shared glasses of wine and played footsie under linen-covered tables. I even picked out the tie she used to love, the navy one with the thin silver line. She'd once said it made me look like I had a secret. Turns out I did. I just hadn't figured out what it was yet. The event was held at a sleek hotel downtown, the kind with too much glass and valet attendants who smiled like they'd seen everything. I got there 10 minutes early, habit probably, and waited in the lobby for Ava to arrive. She'd texted me earlier saying she'd meet me there after finishing up with client prep. I didn't press. I watched guests in cocktail dresses and tailored suits pass by. Some laughed too loudly, some scanned the room like they were tracking rivals, others took selfies near the floral wall display set up for the occasion. I checked my phone twice. Still no reply from Ava's last text. Just a read receipt. When she finally appeared, it took me a second to recognize her. She wore a black satin dress, off the shoulder, with her hair swept up in a way I'd only seen on special anniversaries. Her makeup was more dramatic than usual, sharper, darker, like a version of her designed for someone else. She was laughing as she walked in, flanked by 2 women from her team. I stood to wave, expecting her eyes to light up. They didn't. She spotted me, faltered for half a second, then gave a quick smile. It was the kind of smile you give a polite stranger, tight-lipped, thin, obligatory. "Hey," she said as she walked up. "You made it." "You look," I started, then stopped. I didn't know which version of the word would feel honest. So I settled on, "Wow." She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "Thanks. You clean up nice too." She didn't kiss me. Didn't take my hand. Instead, she motioned toward the ballroom. "Let's go inside." The space was grand, marble floors, chandeliers, tall windows draped in velvet. A string quartet played near the front while waitstaff weaved through the crowd balancing trays of champagne flutes. It was the kind of event that screamed money but whispered distance. Ava introduced me to a few people, her manager, her marketing lead, someone from compliance. But each introduction was vague. She never said, "My husband." Just, "This is Jason," or "Jason from home." No warmth. No pride. Just words like I was someone she bumped into by coincidence. At one point, a woman leaned toward me and asked, "So how do you two know each other?" She laughed, clearly joking, but Ava didn't. "We've been married for 6 years," I said, trying to inject some normalcy into the moment. Ava just sipped her drink and changed the subject. I wandered through the crowd after a while, giving her space. She seemed relieved. That hurt more than it should have. I ended up near the back of the room, watching her from a distance as she moved between conversations, her laughter too practiced, her body angled just slightly toward one man in particular. Kevin. I'd never seen him in person, but I didn't need to be told. I knew. Something about the way he stood, confident, a little too relaxed, told me he was used to being the center of her orbit. I watched her lean in close to whisper something to him, her fingers lightly touching his arm, and in that moment I knew. She never touched my arm like that anymore. Then it happened. No announcement. No farewell. No reason. She left. Just slipped out of the ballroom with Kevin at her side like it was the most natural thing in the world. I saw her hand brush his lower back as they exited, her expression soft, unreadable. She didn't look back. I didn't chase after her. I didn't call out. I stood by the champagne table, surrounded by strangers and string music, wondering what I was supposed to do with the half-finished drink in my hand and the ring on my finger that suddenly felt heavier than ever. I stayed until the end. Maybe because I didn't know where else to go. Maybe because leaving would have felt like giving her the last word. So I stood there, invisible among the crowd, pretending I still had a place in the world she'd already walked away from. When I finally left the building, I didn't feel anger. Not yet. What I felt was emptiness. A kind of hollow that you don't even notice until you try to speak and find there's nothing left to say. The city outside was alive, cars honking, lights blinking, people rushing past in their own bubbles of conversation. And there I was, a man in a suit with nowhere to go, holding a tie chosen for a night that was never mine. I drove home in silence. No music. No thoughts I could trust. Just one sentence looping over and over in my head. She didn't look back. When I pulled into the driveway, the blue rental car was gone. The garage door was shut. The house looked exactly as I'd left it, down to the porch light Ava always forgot to switch off. And yet, everything inside felt rearranged, like someone had come in and moved things just enough to unsettle you, but not enough to prove it. I didn't go inside right away. I just sat in the car, engine off, hands on the wheel, wondering how long I'd been asleep while my life quietly rewrote itself. And how much more I'd have to wake up to. I didn't go to bed that night. I didn't even sit down, not really. I just wandered through the house like I was seeing it for the first time, or maybe for the last. I moved slowly, as if one wrong step might wake up a version of my life I wasn't ready to see yet. The house was too still. Not the peaceful kind of stillness, but the kind you feel when something's gone missing. You walk into a room and can't figure out what's off until you realize it's not the room. It's you. You've changed. Or maybe you finally caught up to the truth. Ava didn't come home. She didn't text. Didn't call. No apology. No lie to soothe me. Not even a half-hearted excuse about an Uber ride gone late. The last time I saw her, she was slipping out of a hotel ballroom with another man, her hand on his back, her eyes locked on the door, and I hadn't been in her line of sight at all. I started pacing the bedroom, slowly at first, then in tight, anxious loops. That room had always felt like a place of comfort. A place we built together. But that night, it felt foreign. Sanitized. Like someone had gone through it with a pair of gloves and erased all signs of an ** Macy. Her perfume no longer lingered on the pillows. Her books were still neatly stacked on the nightstand, but 2 were missing from the top. Small ones, her travel reads. The drawer where she kept her jewelry looked sparse. Not empty, just lighter. Her favorite necklace, the one I got her on our 4th anniversary, was gone. Same with the simple gold hoop earrings she always wore when she didn't want to look too done up. And then there were the shoes. 3 pairs were missing from her section of the closet. Not the dusty heels she never wore. These were the grab-and-go pairs. The black flats, the nude pumps, the white sneakers she used to wear when she said she wanted to wander around somewhere new. Not the kind of shoes you pack for a work retreat. I pulled open her dresser drawers one by one. At first, nothing obvious. But then I realized something strange. There were empty spaces. Intentional ones. You know how drawers get when someone packs with care, not in a rush. No scattered socks. No loose scarves. Just missing pieces in neatly folded rows. She didn't pack like someone running away. She packed like someone preparing to be gone for a while. That's when it hit me. She'd already left. Maybe not physically, not yet, but mentally, emotionally, whatever you want to call it, she was already gone. Her exit wasn't a reaction. It was a plan. Quiet. Controlled. Cold. The bed was still made from that morning. Or maybe it wasn't even slept in the night before. I hadn't noticed until then that the blankets on her side hadn't been rumpled in days. I sat down on the edge of the mattress, gripping the side of my leg, staring down at the floor. The lamp cast a warm circle of light on the rug, and for a second I imagined her walking into the room with wet hair from a shower, complaining about how long her day had been. But the memory felt counterfeit. Like a commercial for a life I thought I'd purchased but hadn't fully read the fine print on. There was a bag in the back of her closet. It wasn't hers. Black leather. Simple. Masculine. I pulled it out and unzipped it carefully. Inside was a change of clothes, men's clothes. Folded t-shirt. Slim-cut jeans. Cologne. Toothbrush. Razor identical to the one in the shower. I didn't know if it was Kevin's, but I knew it wasn't mine. The label on the shirt tag said it all, property of Silver Rock Hotel. I looked it up later. It was 1 block from her office and coincidentally less than 2 blocks from the event venue. I didn't scream. Didn't throw anything. I just stood there with the open bag in my hands, feeling a kind of calm that was so unnatural it frightened me. Like my body knew what my mind was still trying to deny. I zipped the bag shut. Placed it right back where I found it. Downstairs, the house felt too clean again. The air still held that unfamiliar scent. Not overpowering, but present. Lingering. Like someone else had been here, and their memory refused to leave. I sat on the couch with the lights off, letting the silence sink in around me. I didn't scroll through my phone. Didn't turn on the TV. Just sat with it, the weight of what I now understood. Ava was in love with someone else. Or if not love, then something dangerously close to it. Something addictive. Whatever it was, it had already swallowed her whole. The worst part? She wasn't hiding it anymore. She didn't even flinch when she saw me at the gala. She just smiled like she was relieved. Like some part of her wanted me to know so she didn't have to pretend anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I stayed in the living room with the porch light still glowing outside the window, watching the shadows move across the hardwood. I kept waiting for the sound of keys in the door, for footsteps, for her voice calling out like everything was fine. But it never came. Just before sunrise, I stood up and went back to her bedroom. I pulled my duffel from the closet and packed it with exactly what I needed, nothing more. A few changes of clothes, my shaving kit, a book I hadn't finished, and the dog tags my dad left me. I didn't know where I was going, not yet, but I knew I wouldn't be staying here. Not like this. As I passed by her nightstand, I noticed the photo frame was face down. We used to keep a picture of us from the Smoky Mountains trip, the one where she wore that oversized hoodie and I had sunburn on my nose. We'd looked so genuinely happy. Not posed. Not filtered. Just us. I flipped the frame over and stared at the image. Then I put it back down, face first. It wasn't real anymore. Or maybe it never was. Ava came back around noon the next day. She walked in like nothing happened. No tension. No hesitation. She kissed my cheek and said, "Sorry I didn't text last night. Kevin had too much to drink and I didn't want to leave him alone at the hotel. He got food poisoning or something." I just looked at her. She didn't blink. She grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, asked if I needed anything from Target, then walked upstairs to shower. The scent of that same cologne followed her up the steps. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The conversation was already over. It just hadn't been spoken yet. The truth has a funny way of making its way to the surface. Even when you're not ready. Even when you beg it to hold off for just one more day, one more excuse, one more night pretending things are still salvageable. But the truth doesn't care about your timing. It comes when it's good and ready. For me, it arrived on a Thursday afternoon, tucked inside a motion alert on my phone. Innocent enough, just a buzz. A subtle vibration in my back pocket while I was restocking the med kits in the supply closet at the station. I almost ignored it. I'd gotten so used to meaningless alerts, package deliveries, neighborhood dogs tripping the porch sensor, Ava coming and going at strange hours. Nothing ever shocking. Nothing ever definite. But this one said, kitchen camera, movement detected, 2:41 p.m. That was strange. Ava wasn't supposed to be home. She told me she was working a full day, back-to-back meetings. I knew because she'd said it while half distracted, slipping on her earrings and checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. She had her work voice on, crisp, polished, slightly too bright. I stepped out of the supply room and into the stairwell where the signal was better. Opened the app. Hit play. And there it was. Ava walked into our kitchen, laughing. Not smiling. Not smirking. Laughing. Free and unguarded in a way I hadn't seen in months. Her head was tilted back, her hair bouncing over her shoulders. She was with someone. Him. Kevin. He followed behind her like he owned the place, keys twirling casually in his fingers, that stupid confident swagger I'd seen from across the ballroom. Like he didn't even hesitate to walk into another man's home. Like he'd done it before. I watched as they moved through the space, the same kitchen where I used to cook her breakfast on Sundays, where we slow danced barefoot after long shifts, where she once told me she couldn't imagine life without me. Now she was leaning against the counter, looking up at Kevin like he was the only person in the world. He kissed her. Not hesitantly. Not guiltily. Just kissed her, right there in the center of my life. And she kissed him back. That was the moment the illusion snapped. The tension, the doubt, the exhausting mental gymnastics, it all collapsed under the weight of what I already knew. They weren't cautious. They didn't whisper. They didn't sneak around the edges like criminals. They were comfortable. Familiar. At home. My home. I stared at the screen, frozen. I don't even remember breathing. The video kept playing as they poured themselves drinks, laughed about something I couldn't hear, and walked out of frame together like they had nowhere better to be. I didn't watch the rest. I couldn't. I exited the app and locked my phone. Just stood there in the stairwell of the firehouse with the same stillness I'd felt the night she walked past me at the gala. Only now it wasn't silence. It was confirmation. It was over. Not because I didn't love her anymore. Not because I was angry. But because she'd already left me physically, emotionally, spiritually. All of it. And now there was proof. Hard, clear, undeniable proof. I went through the rest of my shift like a robot. Ran drills. Cleaned gear. Ate lunch without tasting it. The guys cracked jokes, but I didn't laugh. Didn't talk much. I'm sure they noticed. But nobody asked. Back at home that night, Ava was in a good mood. Too good. She talked about a funny story from work, something about a client who brought their dog to a Zoom call. I nodded at the right times. Smiled when I had to. She didn't notice anything was off. Because for her, nothing was. She was living two lives, and I realized just how good she'd gotten at it. I replayed the kitchen footage once more that night. Just once. I watched the way she leaned into him, the way she smiled when he touched her waist, the way she glanced toward the hallway, not like she was afraid of getting caught, but like she knew she wouldn't. She knew I wouldn't be there. Because I never was anymore. And that, I think, is what stung the most. Not the cheating, not even the lies. But the realization that they felt safe enough to do this in plain sight. She knew my schedule. She knew my shifts. She knew when I'd be gone. She didn't just betray me. She planned around me. I pulled up the archive and started scrolling. Motion alerts from previous days. Random blips I hadn't paid attention to. And sure enough, they were there. Monday, 3:07 p.m., front door opens. Ava enters. A few seconds later, Kevin. Last Wednesday, 10:16 a.m., living room camera. Laughter. 2 mugs on the coffee table. A quick kiss before they disappear upstairs. It had been happening for weeks. Months, maybe? And I'd been too tired, too distracted, too trusting to see it. Part of me wanted to call her out right then and there. To play the footage on the TV and watch her face crumble. To see if she'd finally tell the truth or keep building stories on top of a crumbling foundation. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I backed up the footage to a secure drive. Created a file folder. Labeled it, No More Doubt. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I started documenting everything. Every time she left the house with a vague excuse. Every calendar entry with no location. Every moment that didn't add up. I wasn't trying to trap her. I was trying to free myself. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't put the lid back on a jar that's shattered in your hands. The next afternoon, I took down the hidden cameras. Not because I was done watching, but because I didn't need to anymore. I had everything I needed. That night, Ava sat on the couch beside me, feet curled under her, glass of wine in hand, scrolling through her phone. She laughed at something on Instagram and leaned her head lightly against my shoulder. Just for a second. I didn't flinch. Didn't move. Didn't pull away. But inside I was already gone. I knew now what I hadn't been able to admit before. This wasn't my marriage anymore. This was a performance. A carefully balanced illusion. A woman who smiled at me while erasing me 1 inch at a time. And I had the footage to prove it. Ava left for another business trip on a rainy Sunday afternoon. She kissed my cheek at the door, holding a weekender bag that looked suspiciously light for a 3-day leadership retreat. I watched her drive off without a word, standing barefoot on the porch as her taillights disappeared around the corner. I didn't feel angry. I felt done. Once the sound of her car faded, I walked back into the house and got to work. Not out of spite. Not out of rage. But out of clarity. There was nothing left to fight for. No confrontation that could untangle the web of lies. She'd already made her choice. I was just the last to catch up. I started in the bedroom. Her drawers. Her closet. Her half of the bathroom vanity. I packed everything carefully. 1 box at a time. I didn't throw anything. Didn't break a thing. I labeled each box by room, wrapped her picture frames in bubble wrap, folded her scarves into neat coils. It felt strangely calm. Like I was cleaning up after a storm that had passed long ago. By the time the sun dipped below the trees, the house was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Still, but not heavy. Empty, but breathable. I took the flash drive with the security footage and placed it on the kitchen counter beside a note. Just 1 sentence. There's nothing left to say. You already said it with your actions. I left my house key on the hook by the door. And then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I landed in Montana 3 weeks later. Not for any symbolic reason. Just, I remembered a lakeside town my father used to talk about when I was a kid. Said it was the kind of place where mornings were quiet and time moved slow. That sounded nice. So I drove until the trees swallowed the roads and cell service dropped to 1 bar. I rented a small cabin near the water. Got a job at a lumberyard, not glamorous, but honest. The kind of work that left your hands sore and your mind blessedly quiet. On weekends I helped an old man restore wooden boats. His name was Jack. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a sander and told me where to start. That first month I didn't answer Ava's texts. She messaged me daily at first, casual things like, "Can we talk?" or "I miss you." Then it escalated. I made a mistake. It wasn't what it looked like. "Please come back." I didn't open her emails. Didn't check her voicemails. I didn't block her either. I just let her words float in the air unanswered. Not out of cruelty. I just didn't need to hear them anymore. Forgiveness didn't mean re-entry. Some mornings I'd wake up before sunrise and sit on the dock with coffee and nothing else. Just me. No noise. No pretending. No hollow smiles. I'd run my thumb across the calluses on my hands and think about how pain doesn't always scream, it sometimes just settles in quietly until one day you stop feeling it. Healing didn't come in waves. It came in stillness. Ava's last message came 6 weeks after I left. A long one. Said she'd ended things with Kevin. Said she'd started therapy. Said she realized what she'd thrown away. That she wanted to make it right. That she'd wait as long as it took. I read it once slowly, then deleted it. Because I didn't need closure from her. I'd already found it. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I wasn't looking for revenge. I just didn't want to carry her anymore.